Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. This Saturday is UFC 291, Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje 2 for the BMF title. And this card is just absolutely stacked with incredible fights. We are going to go through the entire pay-per-view main card, briefly discuss each fight, and then at the end of the video, I am going to grade UFC 291 on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being the worst pay-per-view of all time, 10 being the greatest pay-per-view of all time, and I'm going to answer the question whether or not you should purchase UFC 291. Now, before I get into any of my thoughts on the card, take a look at the main card of UFC 291, and then comment down below what grade on a scale from 1 to 10 would you give UFC 291 before you even hear my opinion. Now, how do I grade these cards? There is 3 factors I look at and consider most important when grading a UFC card. 1, is the matchup relevant to the division? Is it a title fight? Is it a contender fight? Is it a number 1 contender fight? 2, what are the fighters' skill level? Are they the elite of the elite? Are they bottom of the barrel? And lastly, is the matchup on paper an exciting matchup? Do I think the fight will play out and be exciting when it actually happens? Those are all 3 factors that I look at as most important when grading a card. Starting off with the first fight on the main card, we have Michael Chiesa versus Kevin Holland. Michael Chiesa, even though he has not fought since November of 2021, almost 2 years, he is still ranked number 12 in the welterweight division. He's taken on Kevin Holland, who seems to just be getting ranked opponent after ranked opponent. Fought Wonderboy Thompson 2 fights ago, who was in the top 10. Now he's fighting Michael Chiesa, who's in the top 15, sitting at number 12. This is a fun fight, honestly. This is your grappler versus striker matchup. Michael Chiesa's been out a while. He's coming off a 2-fight losing streak. He lost to Sean Brady in his last fight. Lost to Vicente Luque the fight before that. Kevin Holland's coming off a win. Got a win over Santiago Ponzinibbio at UFC 287. Before that, he lost to Wonderboy Thompson. He ended up getting a corner stoppage because he had a broken hand. But when I look at this matchup, it is compelling. It's an exciting fight. Kevin Holland, far superior striker versus Michael Chiesa, who is the superior grappler who wants to get him down, wants to look for submissions. And it's going to be interesting because can Chiesa get him down? Because if Chiesa can get Kevin Holland down, we know that's been Kevin Holland's weakness for a long time, but he's been working on it. And if Kevin Holland can stuff the takedowns of Michael Chiesa, it should be a very interesting fight and a very tough fight for Michael Chiesa. So it is relevant, to the division because it is for a top 15 ranking. And also the matchup on paper is relatively entertaining because it is grappler versus striker. I love those types of matchups. And also both guys are relatively highly skilled. Kevin Holland has great striking. Michael Chiesa has great grappling and jiu-jitsu. So it kind of checks off all those boxes. I really like this fight. I'm looking forward to this fight, and I think it's a great matchup. Moving up on the card, the next fight on the card, I don't know if I love or hate this matchup. It is Tony Ferguson versus Bobby Green. I love it, but I hate it at the same time. Tony Ferguson is on a 5-fight losing streak. Oh, man, that hurts to see. Lost to Nate Diaz in his last fight. Got submitted by Nate Diaz at 279. The fight before that got brutally front kick KO'd by Michael Chandler. The fight before that got out-grappled by Beneil Dariush. The fight before that got out-grappled by Charles Oliveira. The fight before that got absolutely battered by Justin Gaethje. And that seems like a lifetime ago. UFC 249, May of 2020. And Tony Ferguson may have lost his soul that night. And it's just unfortunate to see this guy who was the boogeyman of the lightweight division, stick around. He's taking on Bobby Green, though. Bobby Green, 29-14 overall in his MMA career. Coming off a no contest against Jarrett Gordon, where he knocked out Jarrett Gordon, but there was a headbutt, so they ruled it a no contest, which I thought was fair. Fight before that, he got KO'd by Drew Dober. Fight before that, got TKO'd by Islam Makhachev, but that was on short notice. You look at Bobby Green, excluding the no contest, he's lost 4 out of his last 6. You lost to Rafael Fiziev, lost to Thiago Moises. So this is a matchup that makes sense, but is it relevant to the division? It's at lightweight. Tony Ferguson went up to welterweight in his last fight. Is it relevant to the division? No, absolutely not. Neither one of these guys, I doubt, will ever be ranked. Bobby Green's 36 years old. Tony Ferguson's 39 years old. But what about their skill sets? So are they good? Tony Ferguson, it's weird to try to analyze Tony Ferguson because he took that fight on UFC 279 on 3 weeks' notice. Then he took the Nate Diaz fight on 24 hours notice. Plus, he was moving up a division. So I don't know where Tony Ferguson is. Plus, he was coming off that massive KO. So the UFC did Tony Ferguson a massive disservice, putting him on UFC 279. And then for Bobby Green, he's never been like the elite of the elite. but he's had bright spots where he's looked really good with the striking and he's got great head movement. But then it's just like he's super inconsistent. He's hit or miss. You know, he'll beat Nasrat Haqparast, he'll beat Ali Quinta and look like a world beater against Ali Quinta. Then, you know, obviously he's going to get mauled by Islam Makhachev. Nothing you can do about that. But then he gets KO'd by Drew Dober. You know, so Bobby Green's been a guy who's just been around forever. He's been in the UFC for so long, since 2013, so over 10 years, February of 2013. He's been around forever, but he's hit or miss. So, you know, the way I would analyze both of these guys' skill sets is I would say they're not complete trash cans, but Tony's heading downhill significantly and may have fallen off a cliff if he looks like he looked against Nate Diaz in his last fight. Bobby Green is still competitive, still a fun fighter to watch, so I wouldn't put him that high up in terms of their skill level, which hurts to say because I love Tony Ferguson, and it's not relevant to the division, but on paper, it should be a fun fight. Tony Ferguson, never in a boring fight, even though it's depressing to watch him fight the last, you know, 2 fights that he had, super depressing, but Tony's never in a boring fight. Bobby Green's usually not in a boring fight, so I think it should be a fun matchup on paper. Moving up on the card, the featured fight of the night, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Michel Pereira. This is an interesting fight in the welterweight division. You have Wonderboy Thompson, who's ranked number 7 in the division. You have Michel Pereira, who's ranked number 15. So it's relevant to the rankings. Wonderboy Thompson's coming off a win over Kevin Holland, who was unranked, moving down to welterweight. The fight before that got out-grappled by Bilal Muhammad. Fight before that got out-grappled by Gilbert Burns. Fight before that came off a win over Jeff Neal. So that was a decent win, but that's back in December of 2020. Michel Pereira coming in on a 5-fight winning streak. I thought there was an argument to make that he lost to Santiago Ponzinibbio, but I'm not saying it's a robbery by any means. Fight before that beat Andre Fialho. Fight before that beat Nico Price. So not on the best winning streak, even though 5-fight winning streak, it's still a good winning streak. But this is a massive leap up in competition for Michel Pereira. And it's crazy seeing his last loss was against Diego Sanchez. That's crazy to me. I know it was a DQ, but still to have that on your record, I'd be so embarrassed. But he's getting a massive leap up in competition against Wonderboy Thompson, who Wonderboy Thompson, people were spitting on his grave and just dancing on his grave and saying he's going to get KO'd by Kevin Holland. He went out there and was very competitive against Kevin Holland, was looking like he was on the verge of finishing Kevin Holland when Kevin Holland's corner stopped it because he had a broken arm, or broken hand. But don't get it wrong. Wonderboy Thompson was winning that fight and outstriking Kevin Holland, landing crazy kicks, spinning back kicks, head kicks, good leg kicks, body kicks. So Wonderboy's still very fun to watch. He's still a good fighter. Both these guys, I think, are, I don't want to say they're the elite of the elite. Wonderboy Thompson at one point was there. Maybe he's still there just on the fringe of like the world class in the welterweight division. But he's getting old. He's 40 years old. He's slowing down. Michel Pereira, we still don't know how good he is, but he's looked very good. In terms of this fight, its relevancy, I mean, it makes sense because if Michel Pereira wins, or it's very important because if Michel Pereira wins, he's going to jump up into that top 10 of the division. So it's very relevant to the division. And on paper, it's a fun fight. Michel Pereira goes out there to entertain. He'll start doing flips and stuff in the cage. Wonderboy Thompson is one of my favorite strikers to watch in the UFC. So I think this is a great fight all the way around. I absolutely love this matchup. Moving on to the co-main event of UFC 291, Jan Blachowicz versus Alex Pereira. Jan Blachowicz ranked number 3 in the division. Alex Pereira ranked number 2 in the middleweight division, so technically he's not ranked in the light heavyweight division. But this fight just got a whole lot more important. It was already important, but the second Jamal Hill vacated his belt, this fight got so important. Because now you have a situation where you have a vacant light heavyweight belt. Jan Blachowicz just fought for the title to a draw, so he's right up there in discussion. He's a former champion. And then Alex Pereira, the UFC wants to push Alex Pereira. Look how quickly they fast-tracked him to a middleweight shot against Adesanya. They're trying to do the same thing here at light heavyweight too. They're trying to fast-track him to a potential title shot. People were even speculating they might put the title on the line for this fight. So it's a very important fight. I mean, it doesn't get any more important outside of a title fight. This is a number 1 contender fight. The winner could go on to fight Yuri Prochazka. It's kind of up in the air, but no matter what happens, the winner of Jan Blachowicz versus Alex Pereira will be fighting for the light heavyweight belt in the very near future. Even if they make another fight a month from now, 2 months from now, I think the winner of this fight will be in position to challenge that winner. And this is a massive fight just in general. I mean, this is a great fight. Seeing Alex Pereira debut at light heavyweight, I mean, he looks so, he looked so big at middleweight and he was cutting a lot of weight. I'm curious what he looks like at what I believe to be his natural weight of 205. And he's getting a tough test against Jan Blachowicz. I just love this fight. The leg kick battle is going to be impressive. I'm curious how Jan Blachowicz grappling favors into all this. I'm just curious to see both these guys checking each other's leg kicks. This is a great fight. It's super important. Both guys are the elite of the elite. Jan Blachowicz is getting up there in age. Maybe he's slowing down a tad, but he's still at the top of the division, number 3 ranked right now. And on paper, I think this fight is going to be amazing. I see one of these guys getting finished, whether it's Jan Blachowicz getting a KO or Alex Pereira getting a KO. I see one of these guys getting finished in this fight, and I think the striking exchanges are going to be a lot of fun to watch because both these guys are such excellent strikers. And Alex Pereira has that left hook. It's an absolute nuclear bomb. And Jan Blachowicz has the legendary Polish power. I love this co-main event. I mean, you literally could make this a main event, honestly. That's how good this fight is. You can make it the main event of a pay-per-view, and I think people would actually buy it. So I love the co-main event. It checks off all the boxes. Then you go to the main event, the UFC lightweight BMF title. Now it's moving down a weight class. Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje 2. I hate the BMF belt, but that's not what this video is about. I hate the BMF belt, but it's not what the video is about. This is an amazing fight. I'm really looking forward to Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje 2. I mean, you look at Dustin Poirier. Of his 29 pro MMA wins, 14 by knockout, 8 by submission. 22 finishes of 29. You look at Justin Gaethje, 24 pro MMA wins, 19 by knockout, 1 by submission. So you're literally looking at 42 finishes between the two of them. That is craziness. And neither one of these guys is ever in a boring fight. I mean, Dustin Poirier, you look at his fight against Michael Chandler, super exciting, gets the finish in the 3rd round. You look at the fight before that, a title fight against Charles Oliveira, super exciting, he gets finished in the 3rd round. Fight before that, he's beating the brakes off of Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor snaps his leg. Fight before that, he knocks out Conor McGregor. Exciting fight. Fight before that, the fight against Dan Hooker, one of the best lightweight fights of all time. I mean, Dustin Poirier is one of the most exciting fighters I've ever seen. And Justin Gaethje is right up there with him. Like, if you made a list of most exciting UFC fighters of all time, Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje are at the top of that list. Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev. People were counting out Gaethje. Goes out there and wins. The fight before that, he lost to Charles Oliveira in 1 round. But that was the most exciting 1-round fight I've ever seen. The fight against Michael Chandler was one of the best fights of 2021 at UFC 268. Of course, he lost to Khabib Nurmagomedov, but who isn't? Fight before that, steps in on short notice and beats the brakes off of Tony Ferguson. I mean, Justin Gaethje is literally never in a boring fight. So to match these two guys up again, because they fought in 2018 in an amazing fight then, I love this fight. I absolutely love this fight. And it has title implications. I mean, these two guys are not only crazy and exciting, they're both the elite of the elite. And then on top of that, title implications. The winner of this fight is going to be in a good position to challenge for the lightweight belt, especially if it's Islam Makhachev. We have Islam Makhachev versus Charles Oliveira at UFC 294. Winner of that fight is probably going to fight Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje, depending on how the timeline plays out. Because Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje, even though they've had multiple title shots, they've never fought Islam Makhachev. So that's a fresh matchup. Both these guys have a little bit of star power. Dustin Poirier seems like, you know, his star power has been going through the roof since he smashed Conor McGregor twice. Justin Gaethje is a notable name, and I really think this fight has everything you could ever want outside of a belt, but there is a belt on the line because it's the BMF belt. I think the BMF belt is a piece of trash. It might as well be the hardcore WWE belt. Don't care about it at all, and honestly, I think the BMF belt honestly degrades this fight a little bit. I'll go as far as to say that, but outside of the BMF belt, absolutely love this main event. It has everything. Elite world-class fighters. There's no way it's boring. You look at this fight on paper, there's absolutely no way it's boring. And it has title implications. So this fight checks every single box, and it's literally the best of the best in terms of all 3 of those categories. So I love this matchup. I love this as a main event. It could have headlined a pay-per-view without a fake belt. They didn't need to sell wolf tickets with a BMF belt. This is an amazing fight without that. So this main event is really good. This card is really good. When I look over the overall card, like if I just had to give you a quick thoughts, I know I went through each fight detailed there. Michael Chiesa versus Kevin Holland, not dying to see, but I'm excited for the fight. It's a good fight. Tony Ferguson versus Bobby Green, again, I don't know how I feel about that. Thompson versus Pereira should be good and should be fun for the welterweight division and relevant. Co-main, absolutely love. Main event, absolutely love, but hate the BMF belt. That's just a quick recap of the entire card. You know, honestly, I was flipping back and forth between the grade I was going to give UFC 291. I was going to give it a little bit higher grade, but I decided to dock it a half a point. I am going to give UFC 291 a 6.5 out of 10. And I was going to give it a 7 or a 7.5, but I said, you know what? I have to dock it a half a point for the BMF belt. It's like if they did UFC 200 again with that ugly golden canvas, it was so ugly, I would dock 4 points for that. So the BMF belt is at least worth docking half a point because I just feel like it degrades this main event a little bit by acting WWE-esque, and I really don't like it, and it actually annoys me. And I know I shouldn't care about it as much, but I just feel like, you know, it's delegitimizing the sport a little bit. Next thing you know, we're going to be putting guys through tables and having ladder matches. We might as well have Elimination Chamber for the top of the lightweight division. You know what I mean? That's just the way it's getting at this point with a fake BMF belt. And the fact that the old BMF belt couldn't even lose from, you know, it's not even the original guy who had the BMF belt losing it. They're just, oh, he's retired now. We're just going to throw it on this fight card. I don't like it. So I am giving UFC 291 a 6.5 out of 10. I still think it's a great card. I think it's very, very, you know, I mean, it's super top heavy with the top two fights. But honestly, the top two fights alone is what makes me attracted to this card. I mean, I would pay for this pay-per-view just with the top two fights in Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje 2 and Jan Blachowicz versus Alex Pereira. I love both those fights. Worth the price of the pay-per-view alone. So I would definitely recommend buying this card. I think it is worth your money. It's $85 where I am. I think it's definitely worth it. I mean, top two fights again alone. And then you throw in Wonderboy Thompson versus Michelle Pereira. You throw in the fact that Tony Ferguson might get a win and maybe ride off in the sunset. And then you throw in the grappler versus striker matchup of Michael Chiesa versus Kevin Holland. I think this card has it all. I think it should be exciting. I'm looking forward to every matchup on the main card. But let me know down in the comments what you guys think of my grade. Was it too low? Was it too high? I'm genuinely curious. Let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe. And thank you so much for watching.